So okay, the one thing that's important to understand the current conflict, the dimension of the geopolitics conflict, which is more of domination of certain countries over other countries, or border issues and many other things, which is pretty much the hardcore part of the geopolitics. But I always say that the ever constant war is geoeconomics.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our IAIS podcast series. So we are all about Muslim global affairs. We deal with many issues, primarily regarding Islam and the world issues. So with me today, with my co-host, Mr. Wan Mansur. So how are you today?
Hi, I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. And
It's a pleasure to be here.
yeah, and of course, most importantly, we are with our favorite economist and technologist, Dr. Wan Hasni Wan Sulaiman. How are you, Doctor?
Baik,
Today?
alhamdulillah, very
How
well,
are you doing?
very well.
Thank you for coming again. With
My
us
pleasure.
To share your valuable insight.
My
with us,
pleasure.
inshallah. So, without further ado, I would like to briefly introduce Dr. Wan Naim. Dr. Wan
There's
Hasni
two
Wan
Wan
Sulaiman.
here.
There are two Wan here today. On the short brief of his background, maybe he does not need any introduction, but briefly, Dr. Wan Muhammad Hasni Wan Sulaiman is a Malaysian corporate figure, investor, technologist with decades of experience in finance, strategic investment, and business development. I think he holds academic training in actuarial science,
Yeah.
statistics, and finance from University of Iowa, with specialization on quantitative finance and financial economics. He founded the Abrar Group in the 90s, Doctor, and have been involved in investment cross borders business network, economic ventures across Asia and the Muslim world. I think his career spanned periods of major turbulence. I think in the Asian economic financial crisis, global market shocks, and then 2008, and multiple cycles of geopolitical uncertainty. Then now, currently, Dr. Wan Hasni is the advisor of the DWH Group Berhad, and he is known for a combination of business strategy, system thinking, technology, blockchain, and other areas as well. So that's the reason that we invite him, I think, for the second time, because of his wide-ranging expertise. And do you have anything to ask?
Very impressive, very long and impressive resume, if I might say. I think before I let Dr. Badri jump into the meat of the discussion, I think I am interested. We are interested, and I think the audience are also interested to know a little bit on your personal side, especially during your younger years. Maybe you are 20-something young Malaysian students being thrown far away in the United States, the US. We would like to know how does that expose you, and how does that experience form your early experience or early thinking?
Thank you very much, Wan Naim. Thank you very much, Dr. Badri. First of all, back to the issue of when I really get started in my life. Yeah. And I think that's where, because when I went to the States, I got this awakening. This awakening came from the what I call it the Islamic movement, or as well as student movement. Before that, I was pretty much a very naughty student in the Malay college era. Smart but not naughty. Yeah. So when I went to the States, it was like an awakening that when I start to see the whole American society, and when I saw the American society, you ask yourself about your own identity. Right? Am I part of this identity, or am I having a different identity? I think that's where the awakening is about identity. And then, of course, I got involved very, very heavily and deeply with the student movement of the US, which is the Malaysian Islamic Study Group. And of course, I was involved with the Islamic Society of North America, Muslim Student Associations, with the triple IT of in Washington and so on, and that's how I got deeply involved. And of course, throughout my years, then I also get involved with the engaged with the World Association of Muslim Youth, WAMI, internationally, and many other organizations internationally, and that's why I got my exposure everywhere during that time. While I was still studying and I was still active in the university, and that's also when I got involved and exposed to the various. At that time, it's very interesting because I was forced to involve in during the Kashmir problem, that we had to create a political action committee or whatever to get the resolution for Kashmir. And that was done through the Muslim Association of the US, where we can get the resolution at that time on Kashmir. So that's how you start to go into the corridors of Washington, we call it. And then you start to know how so powerful, or what they call it, the PAC, the PACs, yeah, of the US. Not yet IPAC, yeah, AIPAC, which is another thing, which is the Israelis, but the PACs and so on. So these are all the things that I think during those days give you a lot of exposures and direct exposures, and see with your own eyes how things are going, running. And remember that today we are talking about almost 35 years later. Yeah, 35, 40 years almost later. So a lot of things has gone way, way further than what it was. But those years were the starting years, what I saw in the US. And that's why my view is exposure to the US is one thing. Yeah? And I think if you go and study, let's say in Japan or in UK, you don't get this exposure. Only place that you'll get this kind of exposure is the US.
Very fascinating. Very fascinating. I think you are exposed not to just to the host country, the US, which is you might say the corridors of power at that time. I don't know if it's still at the moment, but also is the international world. And you mentioned Kashmir, and also you're involved with international students from other countries, other Muslim countries. Identity-wise, I think that's clear. Maybe how about the business side? How does that spur your business acumen?
Yeah. At that time, the same issue about the business side. The key things was, again, about, if I talked just now about identity, it's more about your faith and other things. But also on the other part, that you start to ask yourself, what are the powerful power tools, let's call it. Yeah? And economics is definite, because that's exactly what you see in the US as well. Yeah? How the power of these big bankers, big companies, mega companies at that time, because Microsoft, all the technology, Apple, and also at that time General Electric, yeah? And in terms of food industry, Gerber Food based in Chicago anyway, and many others. So I was watching them because I was studying them as well. And I would say that clearly that it's so important that economics is important, but what is the most important tool within economics? The answer is finance, investments, because that's what. And you can see today you have the Black Rocks of the world, and I think the rest is history. And again, this was in late 80s, early 90s. I saw that. And that's why when I took my effort to build Abra at that time, because to me, that's very important to have this strength. And it has to be economic strength, but economics can be built through finance. It's very, very specific, yeah? And I had my own awakening because I was engaged with Goldman Sachs at that time. So I was frequenting New York, Broad Street, we call it 2 Broad Street, which is where the HQ of Goldman Sachs. So I was engaged with them because as a consultant at that time. So I was working for them to develop what we call it the risk modeling. So I was engaging, and that's how I also get exposed to the bankers of the world or the financiers of the world, and they are still is today.
I'm sure Dr. Badri that could be
Yeah.
another topic for
very
our podcast.
very fascinating, Dr. Wan Hasni. I think given your early involvement in business and investment, I think you established your investment company during your PhD days, and we are now going to talk about the economic impacts on Malaysia and the Muslim countries emanates from the aggressions of US and the Israelis against Iran. So, but before we delve into that topic, given your decades of experience in finance, investment, and business, I think across Muslim majority countries, especially the Gulf and also the Arab countries, how has operating in across these countries shaped your understanding on economic resilience, Doctor?
Yeah. So the one thing that's important to understand the current conflict. The dimension of the geopolitics conflict, which is more of domination of certain countries over other countries, or border issues and many other things, which is pretty much the hardcore part of the geopolitics. But I always say that the ever constant war is geoeconomics.
Geoeconomics.
The ever constant war, yeah, meaning that it's a conflict. It's conflict that is will always be there. That's why I remember when I was talking about tariff, I said it's a war. We even say tariff war, right? We don't even say tariff game or whatever. We call it tariff war. So it is what I call a geoeconomic war. So in the whole process of geopolitics, geoeconomic, and whatever, yeah. And if any geopolitics is the bottom line will be geoeconomics. At the end of the day, it's the economic domain, because human beings cannot go to war, physical war, continuously.
Yes.
They can go for months, but after that, everybody get tired. Or there's enough blood being let out. Sorry, the language. Yeah. So they have to stop one day. But then the economic part is a continuous part. So that's why I always talk about economic resiliency. Yeah. Because resiliency is a very big subject as well. So it can be in terms of, let's say, militarily resilient. It's just one subject. But the subject that to me, the most important, the fundamental, is economic resiliency.
Dollars and cents.
Dollars and cents. The stomach, the bottom line, yeah, to the people. And for economic resiliency, the basic fundamental economic resiliency is to be sufficient. I do not want to say self-sufficient too much, but to be a bit sufficient. And if we can achieve self-sufficiency to a large degree, then that's the ultimate goal, but that's not an easy subject within the current global arrangement of the economics, supply chain, and everything else. But to achieve some level of sufficiency, yeah, economic sufficiency.
Yes.
And that's what Abra is all about. Yeah, to achieve the economic sufficiency, yeah, to have your own way of how to deal with any situation and condition. And you have many tools.
Doctor, I think before we had our session, I think we talked a little bit about the previous crisis, the financial crisis, the global crisis. You mentioned the Asian financial crisis, the 2008 global crisis, and I think it's very interesting that you mentioned, in summary, what are the main issues. I think it would be great for us if you can explain a little bit about the previous crisis, but as well, what are the lessons that we can learn from them, especially today, in the Iran-US Israel conflict. And I think you mentioned something about like everything thrown together. Please.
Okay. If we talk about crisis, there's a lot of writings being done about crisis, panics, crashes, crisis, and so on. Many articles, many books even being written about it, and a few of them is like by Kenneth Rogoff and by many other economic scholars. But let's start with the first crisis that I want to mention. I can't be explaining everything because too much time taken to explain. We have to start with the Bretton Woods, the dollar, the gold standard. Then after that comes 1973, 79, supply shock of oil. All right, I just mentioned. 3, then we have to go. It's a bit of time of a bit prosperity and whatever. Then we do have the 1998, yeah, for Asia in particular, financial crisis, yeah, financial crisis that leads to economic after that, yeah, because it starts with financial. Then we do have the 2008, which is what I call it more of the debt crisis. Actually, when you go deep, it's the debt, yeah. Subprime is a debt, but subprime is just an epitome of the subject. So a debt crisis that hit US and global. Then you will have after that the COVID pandemic, which is what we call it the demand side shock. Yeah, because people not demanding, people have to stay home. Yeah. So and then after that, what we have is today. Yeah. Which basically what I say is all this crisis is not war driven, not that the result is not physical war, but more of a geoeconomic struggle and fighting and using various tools. So now today what I see is like all those things come together into one big storm, yeah, and start to hit. And you can see in the current situation, you have you have the issue of petrodollar at stake, which is back to the Bretton Woods, right? Petrodollar is at stake, all right? And you have the supply shock, not enough oil, 73. Now you have also got some of the Asian financial crisis. Why? Because when the Hormuz Straits being blocked in this manner, the subject matter are the Asian countries. That time they used currency attacks. Now it's more of supply shock attack. Yeah, this is not being said by a lot of people because you can see that Trump says, "Okay, I have enough oil," but who don't have enough oil? Don't have enough. Southeast Asia, Japan, China, and even to a large degree Australia far down. Even came up to Malaysia, even asking for all it is asking for diesel. All right. So you can see that this 98 crisis in that manner because it was a currency attack. Now it's not currency attack, but an attack on the economy because currency is attacking the economy. Yeah. So you have the 98. Now, the issue of whether what we saw during COVID pandemic and so on will come. Yeah, the moment inflation goes up, the prices of everything goes up, then you will have the demand side. So that's why I was saying this is quite a big of a storm.
Yeah.
To me, this storm is coming like so many multi-hit storm. I don't know which one that will hit hardest, but you never know how it's going to go, and it's very much, and that's why I always repeat many times, radical uncertainty.
It's a mix of all the storms. Huh?
Yeah.
I wonder how long is the impact towards us. I don't know.
Yeah. There's a bit of an eye-opening, as you mentioned that. And I think our government and also I think JP Morgan analysts have been saying that Malaysia has a very solid economy in weathering this situation. And some of the economists and analysts have been saying that it is more about price spike rather than the supply side, that we can diversify our source and we can rely on a bit on our the domestic production. So from your perspective, what are the most immediate risks for Malaysia? Is it the oil prices? Is it the
And before that,
inflation?
I think there's also an article by Nikkei saying that Malaysia is resilient. I don't know if it's beyond.
Well, okay, let me
Buy on
try to go back to the 98 crisis. 98 crisis, yeah, when the currency was being attacked. All these bankers, same bankers, and also in 2008, we have a good rating, whatever. What happened? Did the predictions come true? My problem with all these predictions, even by the World Bank, there is no skins in the game. Yeah, I mean, if the things come out didn't come out correct, so what? So to me, that's why my point of view is we cannot view the current crisis in the normal way. And I think our Prime Minister, Dr. Sri Anwar, has been saying that we cannot be business as usual. This is not the old normalcy anymore. This is even post new normal. So in other words, things have changed dramatically, and the fundamentals that you think were there or are there, you have to evaluate your assumptions over and over and over again. Sorry. So I think even I was watching the World Bank, IMF World Bank announcement about Malaysian economy, the growth can be about, the global world economy and 5%. So on, 5% and so on. During COVID, I saw the same thing. And that's why my comment to many people that these numbers are coming from the skies. The forecasters have to make some forecasts because they were asked and forced to make the forecast. Yeah. And how do you forecast something that's unforecastable? As a statistician, as a data science person, to me, when the volatilities are very high, your forecast will have a lot of errors. I mean, the error range is very high. So you can say the middle number, but I always believe that instead of forecasting, they have to give some number, right? That's their job. So I always believe that you have to give the range of the possibilities. But when you start to see the range of possibilities, now it becomes scary. Yeah. So that's the main issue. And that's why I think I think if we fall the trap of being complacent, being comfortable, I think it's very wrong. Yeah. But we cannot cause panic too. Because panic is also another problem during the 98 crisis. When you have the panic took place, then become herd mentality, yeah. Everybody start to jump the bandwagon, and you can see the market crashes because of that, and what I call it the self-fulfilling prophecy that comes through, and so many repeat of what I'm trying to say earlier, or what I saw in 98, what I saw in the many years in the past. So I think now it requires a very steady hand. Someone who's not panicky about it. Someone who can understand the nature of the storm, I call it. Yeah? So, yeah. And I will address a bit more about what exactly the effects. Because I think I have to say this first. Because to me, it's important to have the frame of mind that is correct facing this kind of environment. Okay?
If you let me go off tangent a little bit, because our growth is good, 5%, and our ringgit is also strengthening, just crossed the 4 ringgit mark. Just going maybe as a segue, what was the ringgit at your time, during your time in the US? In my time, it's like, how many years ago? More than 10 years ago, it's like 3 ringgit.
During my time was 2.5.
2.5?
2.5, yeah. 2 ringgit 50 cents per dollar, yeah. But remember that time also that yuan is not around, and that time we still have Deutschmark. We don't have euro yet. We have yen. Yeah. So you want to balance the subject, then we have to look carefully across these other currencies. And with the coming of the yuan today, then there's another subject of another day in my view. I don't think I can address that issue. It's a bit more. Yeah.
So the next question is. New opportunities for Malaysia? What can we do?
Crisis will always open up opportunities. Yeah. So and I think all right. For anyone, for anybody to take advantage of crisis to convert them into opportunities, which is a classic Sun Tzu and other philosophers talking about this.
And if you can also situate Malaysia, the Malaysian advantage in this.
So, in the baseline to me, back to be able to be, not to say 100% self-sufficiency, but sufficient. Yeah. All right. So, for example, one of the issues in the earlier days is that there's a lot of slow move and push towards EV. I've been talking about EV for a long time. In fact, I do have some business that involve in EV, whatever. When I started this business on EV stuff in 2011.
That early.
Yeah, people are not talking about it. Yeah. And the problem at that time is people do not see. And then of course the EV push come, but then still there's a rollback and so on and so forth. So like a push and
Is
so
Tesla
now
around at that time?
no, not yet.
Even Tesla.
Yeah, even Tesla. Because I did it in China. China was very ahead.
Yes.
China was very well ahead. And that's why you can see that BYD come up and many others come up. And in fact, I was dealing with BYD at that time. Yeah. They call it BYD in China. Yeah. And in fact, the Chinese name that time, not even BYD. Bayu whatever, I forgot the name. Okay, so yeah, so and then also I was dealing with the China Ampere people for the batteries, yeah, CATL, yeah, and so on. So anyway, let's talk about back to opportunities. All right, I don't want to be off tangent there. So the issue here is now, look, all right, the energy price will go up as it is, the oil price in this case. So, and for all intents and purposes, before the war started, I bought a electric motorbike. And people ask me why. I said, I don't know. My sense says that it's the right thing to do. But I already see that the problem's coming.
I got something smaller, electric scooter.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Not the superbike, all right?
Okay.
Not the Ducati type. Yeah. Nobody will allow me at my age now to go with the Ducati. Yeah.
It's very fast, right?
Yeah.
Faster than normal bike.
Yeah. So anyway, so for example, is the thing. And then also the RE. I mean the solar panel, the roof solar panel. I really been saying that we must go fast and fast and fast. But a lot of people dragging their feet because, causing problem to the grid, blah, 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 and so on and so forth. Now I think we just go ahead.
Yeah.
Because why? Everything, the what we call it, the levelized cost of it, we call it LCOE, yeah, in engineering term, yeah. The levelized cost of electricity before for the RE and other things is a bit too low. So the viability is, people will argue, but on borderline. Based on the current energy, levelized energy price or the baseline, everything becomes now viable. So these examples of opportunity. Yeah, there's a lot of opportunity, and these are part of our effort to become more self-sufficient, right? Yeah. Now, of course, agriculture. Now we have another problem because of there's not availability of fertilizers, okay, urea and others. We've been talking about how to develop biofertilizers for a long time. I was dealing on this issue in Thailand and many other people for quite a bit. Yeah. And of course, biofertilizers before was expensive compared to the dirt cheap urea. Now, suddenly the price of urea goes up. So biofertilizers become viable. So this is what examples of opportunities that come out of crisis. And I think I'm just mentioning 1, 2, 3, but I think there's a lot more to go. And these are all part of being self-sufficiency. So the two parts can come together now. And there's a beauty of it.
I need to ask you this. I think this has been argued by the former Minister of MITI, Tun Zafrul. I think the current crisis could, shift or divert the focus of investors from the Gulf countries to our region. How do you think about that? Is it?
I think in terms of the, of course, it's possible. Everything is possible. But the key issue here is, at the end of the day, investors will look at only one thing. After safety, the next thing is return.
Yes.
So are we able to provide that kind of returns that they demand? Because safety, I'm not too excited about that kind of argument. Yeah, because we are such a small economy compared to, because for safety you need also strength of the base economy. Yeah. So we are still, in that sense, not big enough economy to provide that kind of, let's call it safety net. For now, safety net is really China. Not even Japan, not even US. Yeah? That's number one. Number two, in particular, we talk about the Gulf, the Arab money, let's be very specific now. Well, they have their own problems. Just for the information, for your information. And these are facts. You can check on this fact. Saudi Arabia has to liquidate their US holdings because of the slack in their revenue, just to push up their fiscal to fit their fiscal condition. And people ask me why the gold price didn't go up, because many of these countries, in particular Arab countries, are selling their gold, and that's why the gold price didn't go up. It's dampened a bit.
Yeah.
Supposedly gold will just jump up to the roof, but there's a net seller in the market, and these come from the central banks and this sovereign wealth, whatever, like Saudis and many others. Because the shortfall in Saudi is about $2 billion a day. And they have to start to sell their bonds, whatever, in the US. So they're selling that not to bring to Malaysia. They're selling that to plug their holes. So I think all this kind of thing will only be seen after the storm is over. But after the storm is over, can we be a good destination? If we can provide good returns. Yeah. And I still have a lot of reservation about this issue of money flow at this time. Yeah. Because we have to worry about our own fiscal situation. Ourselves, we have not been able to deal with our fiscal situation clearly. Yeah. And many other things. Yeah.
I think Kelly proceed on that, Dr. Wan Hasni. I think talking about the economies within the Muslim Ummah, Muslim countries, do you see that this current crisis has made the Muslim countries as the receiving end of the economic catastrophe? For example, Indonesia, Bangladesh, Pakistan, who are really rely on others for their supply and whatnot. What do you see on that?
Well, the challenge for the Muslim countries, yeah, or the Muslim majority countries, let's put it the other way, because some countries are basically like Malaysia is Muslim majority, yeah, and many other majority Muslim countries. The challenge that we have is going to be, the bottom line is, how do we manage our domestic economy? Yeah, this is where the challenge is, and how, for example, Prabowo to manage Indonesian domestic economy, and many other countries, Bangladesh and so on, because now everything is, the problems of the global thing will start to come, is coming already at our shore, and will be internalized. So the shock must be absorbed internally. And this is the hardcore challenge, because if you're not careful, there are a lot of internal fractures or structures that are weak before, with this kind of pressure coming in, then it might crack. Yeah. So, and some people, for example, saying that, I'm not talking about only Bangladesh, Indonesia, even the countries in the Gulf, Kuwait. Exactly. Can the royalty, can the old sheikhdom structure within Kuwait survive even this? These are the real questions. Even Bahrain has been questioned quite a lot. Being 60% Shia citizen. Yeah. I'm not trying to excite them, by all means, please, But these are what I call it, the fundamental fractures that are there. And I think once the war is a bit settled down, it will have settled down, which I think we have to talk about it, how long this thing lasts, because I think that many people want to understand that. But when it settles down, then all these fractures, when the water subsides, then the fractures we can start to see. Yeah? Because that's why this regime change being tried to impose on Iran is going to happen even in the US, maybe. We were talking about regime change in the US. Trump will go out of the office, and regime change may happen a lot. And whether regime change will also happen in Malaysia, well, that's a question that also not part of our podcast here. But these are the basic questions. So that's why internally people have to be careful. What are the underlying fractures and so on, and how we deal with that issue to make sure that those fractures doesn't come and break up the country or society unnecessarily or in a bad way.
Dr. Wan Hasni, following from what Dr. Badri has asked you about the global Muslim Ummah, the global Muslim countries, you mentioned the internal fractures and whatnot. How about moving forward? What if the tensions, the crisis is still on for the next 6 to 12 months? what should policymakers, businesses, even ordinary citizens like us in Malaysia, and even the wider Muslim countries I'm putting everybody, what should we be prepared to do now from the individual level, from the state level, even the
All right.
global level?
So, okay, let me now try to dissect a few points. First, when this crisis started, the immediate thing that we see was what I call it price effect. Price effect. Harga. The price start to increase. Yeah, because of the perceived risk and real risk, and then eventually it becomes because of shortage of supply and so on and so forth. But let's call it price effect because it comes out of many subjects, many reasons, but the impact is clear. Yeah, everybody see. In the US, they saw the gasoline price $5 per gallon, right? And we, because of subsidy or Budi 95 and whatever, don't see it. But yeah, I'm not using the subsidized diesel because my car is more of the expensive type. No. My car is not EV. My motorbike only EV. Yeah. I'm trying to look at the EV cars, but not yet decisive in regard technology. But anyhow, so anyhow, I use the RON 97. Yeah. So because I want to make sure I can feel the impact. I want to make sure that myself, feel exactly what's going on there. But anyway, the price effect is already there. Now, as an economist, I'm quite clear. One thing about price, once it goes up, have you ever seen price to go down?
Difficult.
Common question. Difficult. It may go down after a long time, but then it's a different thing already. It comes down in different form. So the problem is that had already happened. You don't have to imagine that, now later on that the price of this thing will come back to the old days. Nope. This is what I call a price effect. There's a lot of debates about, but you can go to microeconomics, you can see what I said very clearly. Okay? We all conclusive and agree on that. So this effect is already there. So then what are other prices that will go up? Everything will go up, so everything will start to go in sharp. So this will be a clear inflationary impact. And it will start to eat up your bottom line. Let's say you are earning 3,000 as household. You are spending 30% more on money-wise on this, then it will up, say 3,000, 1,000 ringgit is gone already because of the increase. Then you see, you will start to see the impact soon rather than later. So that's the first part. Now, and what I said just now, doesn't matter the war is going to end tomorrow or it's going to end in 3 months or 6 months or 12 months. My only concern and worry is that if it goes on 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, the price even go up much higher. I hope not. I pray not. Yeah. So in other words, the price effect becomes more problematic. Yeah. But at least what we see, and this is my comment, if you want to forecast what you're going to see in 1 year's time, you don't have to forecast, you already see it. Yeah? You already see it. So whatever you saw today in terms of prices, pretty much you already see it. You don't see, some of you don't see because you are using Budi 95. But okay, print out the screen, the screen. Yeah, how much is being subsidized? And as a chief economist, the economic advisor to the Prime Minister's office said that every second we are spending 2,300 ringgit to 3,000 ringgit for subsidy. Every second. Yeah, it's a true number. And if we want to maintain subsidy, that's exactly what we're going to do for the next 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years ahead. Fiscally, can we handle it? Okay, it's not my part to answer, but somebody got to answer that.
Yeah. So Dr. Wan Hasni, we try to turn back to a kind of a silver lining. I think this crisis is happening coincidentally with the booming of AI. I think the development of agentic AI is very tremendous and very fascinating. So how do you see? Can we leverage on that, on AI and also maybe blockchain, if we want to cushion or want to weather this?
Especially given your background.
It's a very interesting subject, honestly. Many of my writings that I usually do, that I was explaining about the problems of the current approach of LLMs and AI, that basically is power hungry. Yeah,
Yeah.
power hungry. Now the cost of power goes up, and I was explaining in one of my articles that when you run an AI model or AI setup, 50% of your cost is power. 50%. Then the
Data
other
center.
30% is the data centers. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other 30% are the hardwares and the chips and whatever. Yeah. Power comes from the cooling as well as to run the chips. Is all the flops, I call it FLOPS. Yeah, the floating operations per second kind of thing. And that's why my argument was basically that the current approach of AI with the big LLMs and whatever are not sustainable. What we call it under the old economics, we call it Gresham's law, meaning that, for example, you want to shut down the light. How many joules for you that you need for your energy to stand up and then turn off the light? But if you use AI to do it, it requires almost 1,000 times of that amount of energy being into the chips and just to do the same thing. So it's not logical. Yeah. So this AI, the high-end AI, is useful for very high-end things, but not for just simply shutting the lights. But the problem is people using the AI just to do the basic stuff. Yeah. To write a short essay and for your PhD thesis, jokingly, and so on and so forth. Yeah. And many other mundane stuff. Yeah. And yet, to do that mundane stuff, you are consuming a lot of energy. So that's one issue. And you can imagine that, for example, the setup being done in the Johor or whatever, the amount of energy consumption to do that. And all the assumption was why being set up in Malaysia, because of the energy is relatively cheap. Now, if the energy has to go up by double of the old business model, so as the Malaysian says, koyak. Yeah. So okay, that's one issue that I wanted, and that's why what Dr. Badri is alluding. I was saying that you should go for the small language model. Yeah, SLMs I call it. I've been saying this long time. And I was talking about another thing that I can say today as well. That is about how to develop we call it the model context protocol, the MCPs. Because I was saying that this is going to be the next one, the agentic, which is more SLMs, and also the model context protocol, the MCPs, because these are the way how to efficiently call an AI model or how to curate the AI model. And because these are the lower consumption of energy and so on and so forth. Yeah. And of course,
for our audience who are not well accustomed to SLM, what is small language model?
Yeah.
In brief.
Small language model, basically the size of the model itself not as big. Yeah. In terms of the size. Because now we're talking about trillion of parameters, blah, blah, blah. And to run, you take trillions of flops.
So much smaller than the
Smaller.
regular one.
Smaller. I'm talking about the size of about 5% of the original large model. It's much small. Because the reason why, because for example, this model is good to shut off the light. Okay, that's the only thing they're good at, and that's it. Yeah. And this model is good just to do this one. Instead of multi-purpose, a general purpose model or artificial general intelligence.
More specialized?
Specialized. Focus. You don't need a big model to do a lot of things.
I was wondering, who's leading the technology in this?
I think that's why I always say the DeepSeek moment. Yeah. The DeepSeek moment. China. Because China has been all along, their approach of developing AI is towards application specific. Yeah. All along. They were never trying to go and do the big model, and the one that trying to do are the American side, and to a large degree also European through Anthropic and so on. But pretty much the Silicon Valley approach is to go to the large model, and I think that whole thing is, as I used the word just now, koyak.
I think, but that is in terms of energy efficiency in managing AI. How about developing business model by using AI, and also they are talking about one person company and whatnot.
Yeah, and that's why I think the current crisis, that's I'm talking about the big model, right? But let's talk about AI as a whole, and that's why I tried to mention China just now, and you can see that actually under the current crisis, China is benefiting from it. So the answer is, the current crisis should make us to be faster to move into that direction, because then we can build a lot of applications. small level applications, very precise application. Yeah, and we do have all the tools. We don't need all the super duper processor or GPUs. You can deal with these issues with the basic GPUs that we have, the A100s or whatever that we had before, which are basically a commodity today. Yeah. It's a commodity already. It's a commoditized. So it's all available, and you don't have to build all the super duper, I call it, yeah, data centers and so on to run it. Yeah, you can run on small clusters and so on. You can rack up your own. Yeah. So I really believe that this is time. And it should be a wake up call for if those people can see that it should be a wake up time and just yeah. So the opportunity is there. There's a lot, in fact, a lot. Yeah, a lot of this. Because why? Because among the issue of resiliency is also to be efficient, right? No wastage, no sub-zero. Yeah, there's no thing that we waste. Yeah.
Maybe final question. I need to ask you this question. I think you mentioned about skin in the game. What do you see? The leadership of Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim in this particular current crisis. I think he has faced the 1998 economic crisis, and afterwards, then how do you see that?
He is the most qualified and the most experienced person in the country today. Of course, I do not want to say that Tun Mahathir do not have that experience. He do, but I don't think that in terms of the ability of physical situation that he is able to do this. So the answer is that Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim do have all the experience, and in fact, yeah, you can see that when he started to become prime minister, he spent a lot of time on the geopolitics. Yeah? China, all over, running to China, all over the place. Now it's bearing fruit. Now he don't have to go out anymore. People are coming. Australia, for all it is, came begging from us to get some business. Sorry, the Aussies, yeah? But the situation is real. Yeah. And he was the chair of ASEAN 1 year before this crisis. So meaning that he built and put in all what I call it into practice, his experience. Well, I have to unfortunately say that I do not see others from the opposition or from anybody else inside the government today that can come to that level. And today, I would say that the risk of geopolitics to run the country is 50%, domestic is 50% today. So if you don't have, someone can be very good in domestic issues, but you have very low percentage on the international geopolitics, it's very dangerous. Yeah. So he is the only person. Yeah, the only person. Yeah. Maybe there are criticism about how certain things domestically, but those are opinions. Yeah. As I said, fractures. Yeah. But one thing that I want to say clearly that other 50% is not a glass, cannot be a glass half empty, my dear. And Datuk Seri Anwar is a full glass when it comes to that side. Not to praise him for any reason, but this is truly what I believe. Yeah, because seeing so many things. Yeah. And remember that in the 98, I was quite close to then the government of Tun Mahathir as well as Datuk Seri Anwar. So I was in the middle of looking at the whole meltdown happening. And I saw, many things. And again, many times passed as well in 2008. I was in Dubai and I was managing a lot of things in Dubai. And I was involved in engaging with the rulers of Dubai at that time and put up so many proposals of how to restructure the Dubai economy, which I was involved very deeply as well. Yeah. So many times that to me it's so important to have the leader of the time, has to have the other one not half empty. So dangerous. It must be full. We cannot afford to have the geopolitics to be half empty. Unfortunately, I do not see others, have that except him. Yeah. So that's why I pray that may Allah SWT keep him healthy. And of course, I very much would say that, we need him. We do need him. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hasni, for your time. It's always been very fascinating and very eye-opening. We have a conversation with yourself. So thank you very much for your time. So I think see you again in our next podcast series. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
And for our audience online, thank you very much for tuning in. Please follow us in our next podcast. And our tagline is enlighten, empower, and evolve.